All I know is that the worst thing that ever happens to you is literally the most powerful thing you can have in the future. Like, Colin, it doesn't make sense. I grew up in a town, 100,000 people in Eastern Canada. I wasn't even supposed to be alive. I used to be 265 pounds, fat as couldn't keep a relationship, used to smoke a pack and a half a day. Got myself in trouble, ended up in prison when I was a teenager twice. Sometimes the adversity is actually forging you into the person you need to become to receive your goal. My life is a byproduct of incredible people showing up in my life at the right time, extending their belief in who I could be when I didn't have the belief in myself. Got clean and then discovered computer programming and rehab and built an empire.
Ladies and gentlemen, do not go anywhere because dreams do come true. Today on the show, we have the one and only Dan Martell. Where do we even begin with who Dan is and what he's accomplished? Dan is a Wall Street Journal bestselling author. He's a serial entrepreneur who's exited 3 companies. He's the founder of SaaS Academy. He's a highly sought after executive coach. He has edmylett as his own personal coach. He's spoken on stage with Tony Robbins. Overall, he is just an incredibly well-rounded individual. He is a phenomenal husband, a father, philanthropist, gives back to his communities. He's an adrenaline junkie, loves to snowboard, loves to wake surf. He is an Ironman athlete. He's been sober for over a decade. He is quite honestly just an individual that I highly aspire to live my life after. And before we get into this interview, I want to just take it back to a quick story and stay with me here because this is powerful. It was October 14th, 2022, and Dan had just released his book, Buy Back Your Time. And he was doing a podcast tour, and he put out on Instagram that he was looking to jump on podcasts and promote the book. So naturally, I reached out and asked him to come on the show. I slightly hoped that he said no because I was really nervous about it. And he did say no. And he said, hey, thanks, but I'm looking for somebody with bigger reach and a bigger audience. But get to 100 episodes and I'll come on the show. And so how many did I have at that time? I had 8 total episodes. And so fast forward a year and a half later, a lot of failures, a lot of lessons and learning opportunities, a lot of being in the lab and in the studio time, and 102 episodes later. And here we are, ladies and gentlemen, recording the live introduction to the interview that I did with Dan a couple weeks ago at Martell Media Studio Productions in Kelowna, Canada. It's honestly pretty hard to even believe that I'm saying these words because it was such an incredibly impactful experience and just shows the testament to what we can achieve when we put our hearts and our minds towards our goals and our dreams. And you already know when they offered me the opportunity to come in person and do the live interview, you know, I hopped in my car, drove the 7 hours to Kelowna, Canada, stayed in my little Airbnb, drove to Martell Media Studio Productions that next day, shook his hand, and did the interview live, sitting across from him on the couch. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you can just walk away from this episode feeling transformed with any perspective or idea that can change your life forever, because we talked about vision, we talked about dreams, we talked about how to become somebody that you possibly didn't even think was possible. And we talked about his work with edmylett, speaking on stage at Tony Robbins, and everything that goes into living and leading a holistically well-rounded and very intentional life. And so without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and dive into this live interview with the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Dan Martell. Dan Martell, it's a pleasure to meet you.
This is fun. I'm excited. I appreciate you driving out.
You bet. I appreciate the challenge because as we were just talking about, you challenged me to get to this very seat right here. And just for a quick backstory is I started a podcast. You just released your book. You were doing a podcast tour. I reached out and said, hey, Dan, I have a podcast. I had 8 episodes at the time. And you said, hey, that's great. Let me know when you get to 100 and I'll come on the show.
Yep.
We're at 102 and here we are. So what are some of your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I mean, I get hit up every day. You know, half a dozen people want me on their pods. A lot of them are brand new, 3, 4. Some of them, it's like pre-launch. They're like, hey, will you be part of my launch? And I'm like, look, I only do a handful of pods now. They should have an audience, right? Because that's the whole point. And because I'm going to bring my audience to your pod, I want them to also be able to consume other things.
Of course.
And the truth is most people that get inspired to start a creative project don't have follow through skills, because creating is easy, following through is hard. So I always give people a challenge. Just like even any person in the world can come hang out with me. Most people don't know this. Anybody, no matter who you are, where you live, we can spend time together. It just requires you to be in Kelowna, BC at 6:25 in the morning on a Tuesday.
Yep.
And I have to be in town. But today, Tuesday, 6:25, there was 4 people that flew in for the hike, but there was like 30 people on the hike, and we hike a mountain. And some people are like, well, can we just do coffee? No. Like, I have to hike anyways. It's part of my training program. So come with me. Asking me to do coffee for 30 minutes is taking me away from my family or my team. And both those people are a little bit more important to some random stranger. So to me, I think it's really important that you create almost like a how committed are you filter to people, because especially if you're somebody like me that has a large audience, like I get 1,200 messages a day. Like I don't like those emails, the original one when the book came out, my audience has grown 10x. I don't see those anymore. And the team, they don't even do that. But so like you even got in before, this isn't even something we do anymore. The 100 episode is not something I can offer, unfortunately, but that's my brain. That's why I do it.
I think
my mentor did that to me. Literally, my first mentor told me to meet him at 7 a.m. on a Sunday morning at a coffee shop. And I showed up wearing a suit and tie, 26 at the time, actually. And I couldn't understand why he would want to take Sunday morning out of his time. And he said, if you would have barked at that time, I would have known you weren't serious. So it's just really just see if people are serious.
It actually is a step even further back than that, because if you recall, you did an episode with a gentleman named Ken on the content capitalists. And it was back in, I want to say September 2022. And I listened to that episode, and I'll never forget, you talked about 10-year commitments, decade-long commitments. And
Dedicated decade.
Decade.
Dedicade is what we call it now.
Dedicade. Well, I'm running a Dedicade right now on the podcast. And so from that, I took that to heart, wrote down what I was going to do, which was post an episode a week for the next decade. And we are a year and a half into that. And so it was that combination with you saying those words at that moment in time, and then me actually taking it to heart and acting on the inspiration from there. And then I made a podcast about that commitment. So I put it out there publicly. There's 1 week that I missed, and it was after a year of having done it. It was a Monday morning, and I had a panic attack. And I was like, oh my gosh, I missed my episode last week. So I stopped what I was doing. I went to my house. I recorded an episode on missing that, and then recorded another one to make sure I don't miss twice to make up for the last week. So that's how we're sitting at 102 right now from your challenge that you...
I'm just curious, who was episode 100?
Episode 100 was my own personal episode.
Okay, so you went solo for that one.
I went solo.
All right, I would have my feelings a little hurt.
No.
Not a lot, but a little.
And I reached out to you right around 92
Okay.
and said, hey, Dan, I'm approaching. I don't know if you recall, but we had this exchange, but I appreciate you because you followed through on the commitment, and you never know what you're going to get, from people. I was assuming that you would.
I've never, ever said anything and not done it. That's just, I work with people sometimes that do that, and it blows my mind that they think that's okay. And to a fault. Sometimes I've committed to stuff a year later that I'm just like in the thick of things, and I'll still show up if I said I'd show up.
And I was expecting that. And so here we are.
Cool.
So anyways, a founder's hike was awesome. And I specifically coordinated a Tuesday with your EA to make sure that I was going to be a part of that.
Oh, you were on the hike this morning?
I was there this morning. I was there this morning.
Why didn't you say hi?
You
just wanted to get the vibe?
Yeah. I was just like,
awesome.
let me show up. I was honestly in a really good conversation with a couple of folks. I met Shar from your coaching.
Shar,
we chatted for 20 minutes afterwards.
Yeah.
Chatted with a gentleman, Roger, around the area. So I met some really, really cool people. I knew we were going to have this time. Probably could have been a little bit more proactive, but
it's funny because it happens every week. So I don't know. And sometimes if people message, she'll create like a separate intro or calendar entry. But I will tell you, more often than not, people essentially come and just hike and just get busy, or I show up late and leave fast because it's kind of in and out. And I would say 75% of the time I don't meet the people that came for the hike. But like you said, they didn't need to have a conversation. They just wanted to see what it's like. Like you felt the vibe on that hike.
100%.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Every Tuesday, this community has a place where, you know, and what's neat is you see some of these younger cats, like there's some guys on that hike that were 19, 20 years old that, you know, they don't have a group of friends that are positive, and they get to plug in to some of my friends who are some of the wealthiest people in the city hiking on Tuesday morning. It's kind of awesome.
I was sitting there reflecting after it, just, it's so important, the environment that you're in and the people that you're around, your mindset is immediately elevated. And it is like so contagious, you know, and your thoughts are automatically elevated. And so, Dan, I do want people to know about you. So what I have learned in these 100 episodes is, of course, I love doing my solo episodes. What I have found more enjoyment and value for the audience and, you know, the folks listening is the inspiration behind other people's stories. And so for people that don't know who you are, I really want them to be able to understand who you are and what you're about. And specifically, I would like you to take it back as far as you want to go. And
what people need to know is anybody, if they're watching this or they hear my words, okay, they might see Dan who's fit, okay? I'm 6.4% body fat, 215 pounds, okay? I'm 6'3", I'm a lean, you know, I work out. I used to be 265 pounds, fat as fuck, okay? Fat dude, couldn't keep a relationship, used to smoke a pack and a half a day. How about that? Most people don't know I used to be a smoker from 14 to 21. I smoked every day. Ended up in prison when I was a teenager twice, right? Got myself in trouble. And what I can say here sitting is that my life is a byproduct of incredible people showing up in my life at the right time, extending their belief in who I could be when I didn't have the belief in myself. And I think that's what we are all here on earth to do. So got clean when I was 17, 18, and then discovered computer programming and rehab, you know, and built an empire. I mean, that is my day. You know, I fly around on my jet. I got a supercar collection. I've got all the possession shit, but more importantly, I have an incredible marriage to my wife, Renee. She's the queen bee in my life. I mean, anybody meets her realizes that, like, this guy married up. Duh. My two boys, Max and Noah, they're 10 and 11 right now, are like my favorite people to hang out with. And I am a professional builder of people. Like, that's what I do as a profession. People go like, what do you do? Because if you met Todd here, but Todd runs this company. Johnny runs SaaS Academy. Like, Kevin runs Big Band Software. Like, I am good at one thing, and it's just to build other people. So, like, I coach as a side hustle, and I run 2 8-figure coaching companies. So, like, my side hustle, I just know how to build people, and people build businesses. And that's where I think a lot of people miss that concept. So Buy Back Your Time, my book, was about understanding the value of your time as an entrepreneur and really the mindset of learning how to let go. Dude, the problem isn't most people know what they got to do. They just can't let go to allow somebody else to help them with it.
when you say let go, what do you mean?
Literally let go. So I can give you 100 examples. How about we start with the person that hires a cleaning lady and cleans the house before they show up? Why don't we start with that? That's a crazy concept to me. You hire somebody to clean your house, you clean it before they show up, right? So you can't let go. You can't even let go of the potential that somebody's going to think you're messy because you invite them in your home, so you got to clean so they don't think that. Okay? You hire an assistant to do a job for you, and anytime you see something not done, you just do it, thinking you're helping out, but all you did is just communicate to your assistant. If they just wait long enough, you'll do the thing. You don't let go, right? You literally hire somebody to do something, and instead of letting them do it, you tell them how to do it the whole time. You micromanage them. You can't let go. And why? Well, there's the fear that they'll make you look bad, right? What if they do a bad job and then my reputation's on the line? There's the fear that they do something so bad they could cost me my business. That's real. Like, I get it. So they're control freaks. They don't hire anybody in the first place because they can't even let go of the idea that could be done at somebody else wouldn't do it at the level they'll do. They expect the other person to know 100% of what you know to do it at 100% the same level with no training. Fascinating. I've learned 80% done by somebody else, 100% freaking awesome. So what happens is most people are so scared. Most people, first off, they can't be accountable for themselves. So that's like rule number one. So most people can't let go of their own bad habits to be accountable for themselves. You talk to these people. Hey, man, what happened with that? Oh, this guy said this, and this happened because of this person. No. What happened? Well, this guy did that. How did you contribute to the situation? Most people can't be accountable for themselves. So if they can't learn to let go of their bad habits, their vices, and their default is to blame other people, right? I'm always late because of this person. No, you're always late because you allowed that person to do that to you. You know, see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
The person that's always like, they have a partner in life, right? Let's say their husband's always late and the wife's like, I'm sorry, I'm late because of my husband. No, you're late because you've allowed your husband to do that. Because I guarantee if you jumped in the car and took off and made him take his own car or not make the thing, and then he showed up and everybody's like, hey man, why are you late? He's like, because I'm late. And it's, you know what I mean? It's not both of you are late. They're late. That's a one time you do that and they will learn the lesson because we teach people how to treat us. So letting go is one part, being accountable for who you are and letting go of your vices. And the second part is learning to let go and give it to somebody else, because now it's not about being accountable to yourself. It's being accountable for somebody else. So most people can't even be accountable for their own circumstance, could never have somebody else help them because they can't even be aware enough that they own their reality, let alone now I have to be responsible for somebody else. True leaders are willing to take accountability for other people's actions. Think about that concept. You mess up and somebody goes, what happens? And my response is, I messed up. No, I saw Colin do this. Nope, I messed up. Colin's on my team. I hired him. I chose him. I didn't properly train him. I didn't follow up. I didn't pay attention. I'm at fault. Dude, that's the part about letting go. Like people can't let go to have somebody else be accountable and then own that. So I think that's like the chaos that most leaders create amongst their team because of their past issues, their mindset that then shows up in the business world. Like most business problems or personal problems that just show up in the business.
You've been working with Edmylett.
Yeah, he's my coach.
What is the number one thing that has driven the most impact in your life from however you want to take that? I'm so curious about this work.
Yeah, so Ed and I did a podcast on my YouTube channel that everybody should go watch, okay? Because before the pod, I'd been working with him for a year, and I said, is it cool? Like, is there anything off the table? Because I don't want to give away your secrets. And before he said, nope, everything. Now, I'm the kind of guy, I take detailed notes. When I work with people, when I read books, I study, okay? So like every session, documented, takeaways, action items, execute, feedback. So prior to that pod, I went in going, these are like the 5 things that I've never heard anybody talk about that I'm going to get Ed to share that I know will shift people's perception. So those are on the pod. But personally for me, there's things that I didn't mention there because they had the most profound impact on me.
Right.
Because like those 5 things are like things that anybody could take. But for me specifically in my situation, the first one, dude, his belief in me, that's it. I said at the beginning, my life is a byproduct of people coming into my life at the perfect time to believe in me when I had no belief in myself. Like I'm a confident guy on the business side. When it came to creating content and media, dude, I didn't believe I had a voice. I didn't believe I had a story. I didn't believe I had results worthy of speaking to. I didn't believe I had the potential to be a top person, however you define that. And for him to look at me and say, dude, I've studied the best. You know, this person, you're better than that guy. You're better than this thing. You're better. Dude, he's saying this to me. And if it's any other person in the world, I could dismiss it. But it's Ed. And Ed is personal friends with all of them from the top to top to top. You name it. Go look at his podcast. Okay. From the top athletes to the top speakers, to the top business icons, authors, etc. And he's telling me this. And he goes, and here's what you need to do if you're willing to do it. The cool part is about me, I have this very small knowing doing gap. Like if it speaks in my heart, I don't second guess it. For example, one time I'm in my office on the other side of the wall, and I'm doing a coaching call with Ed. It's funny because he's in like a cut off tee tank top. He just got back from the gym.
Jacked.
Yeah, he's jacked. He's like, "What's up, brother?" And he says to me, he goes, "Hey man, I got something for you. It could be a game changer. Nobody else is gonna probably do it the way it has to be done for it to work. I think you could pull it off. Not sure. It's big, but it's on my heart." And I was like, what is it? He goes, you got to vlog everything. I said, what do you mean? He goes, you need a video guy everywhere. You go speak at an event behind stage, they're there. You go to a dinner, they're there. You go to your family thing, they're there. They're in your house, they're in your car, they're in your jet, they're there. and show the world as you build this thing. Show them, show them, show them. He goes, I'm just at a stage in my life where it doesn't make sense for me to do it. But if I did it, crush. He goes, that's what people want to watch. He goes, look at all the streamers right now, right? Look at all the content producers, right? All the vloggers, the influencers. But very few people in the business context are willing to do that. As soon as the call was done, I run out my office, opened the door, okay, to the media company, screamed at Sam and to Lowen, and I said, we're doing a vlog and get the team ready, and we're starting, and we're going to publish in a week. And if you look at the date, the first vlog came out, it was 7 days after that call. And we haven't missed every week. We keep putting it out. Every video we put out is in the rankings of our analytics. It's a newer, better, it's a 1 to 10 is what we call it, because it's always ranked off your top 10 videos. So it's the one just posted yesterday, 1 to 10, 1 to 10, 1 to 10. And that's just an example. But why would I do that? So much trust in his strategies, right? So confidence is the first thing. He extended. If I got nothing other than that, like, put it this way, the transformation happened at the transaction. The moment I wired the money, I changed. As soon as I paid, I changed. Why? Okay, well, working with Ed is a major investment, as it should be, because he's the best of the best. Time is the only resource we can't make more of, and he knows what his time's worth. But in that decision, what did that tell me? Well, it told me that I'm worth it. I'm worth investing at that level. And then I wanted to get, obviously, my money's worth. So when he says something, I just do it. I don't second guess it. So that was, but having him extend his confidence in me, the media side of it, like this, what you see here, we only moved in here 7 months ago. And this company is only a year old last month, 12 months. And this thing is, we're bursting at the seams. We got a bunch of people we're hiring, all in large part because of Ed. Ed said, do you want to be top in the world? I said, I'm willing to do what I got to do. He says, okay, well, here's what you got to go do. And I was like, cool, hold my drink, watch this. Boom, just execute. That I had because of the business background, but really understanding who I needed to become, that's the big question. The other thing he taught me was the concept of pulling vocabulary.
What do you mean?
So
you said pulling vocabulary.
Yes.
What do you mean?
If you think of communication, right now you're interviewing me.
Right.
Your ability to pull the proper vocabulary to cue up an emotion, either to me, the audience, whatever. My ability to communicate in this moment, a story and emotion, is going to dictate whether this was incredibly valuable or not. Was it transformative or was it flat? So he is so maniacal about the concept of being able to pull vocabulary when you need it, that he had me on brain training. Okay, I have a Mendy strap. It's literally a brain interface where it helps you focus your attention. My nutrition, my supplements, my rehearsal, my pre and post routine on stages.
And this is all geared for pulling
vocabulary,
which goes into a lot. I mean, you're talking tone. You're talking.
It's not even the mechanics. See, that's the thing. It's not even the theatrics. It's literally the ability to tune into and connect with your source, God, creator, whatever you want to use, universal consciousness, and pull the vocabulary required in that moment. And you can actually see the analytics on my content when I'm connected, and when I do it right, it hits.
So that I've never heard that before.
Yeah, so there's that sensory acuity. We talk about that a bit with Ed, but what's cool is, like, I've now taken these tools, incorporated into my private coaching. So it's awesome because now I take all the business stuff that I've done, right? Which is pretty elaborate. I mean, sometimes I wonder how I've done all this, but it's just every day adding stuff. And then applying with everything I've learned from Ed, I'm able to, I mean, this is cool. In many ways I can do what Ed did for me, but even faster because I know just the way I think about things. It's I like always try to distill it, right? Like a reduction sauce. Like what parts really move the needle?
So you started working with Ed. From what I am interpreting, there was limited belief in yourself, even though, you know, I would look at you, any individual would look at you.
I still have limiting beliefs, man.
Right? So what is it? So you mentioned hearing it from Ed is a different thing, right? Because what, you believe that he truly does see this in you? Or like, where was the gap filled from the belief that you were lacking to what
Well, I think most people intuitively have a sense of direction in their soul.
Right.
Okay. So
Okay.
if everybody's willing to get quiet, okay, and ask themselves what would they absolutely love their life to look like. Most people say, I don't know. But you actually know, because if I told you what you want it not to look like, you give me the list.
Totally.
So the opposite is what you actually want. Just most people will literally not give themselves permission to dream. I have a friend that called me the other day. He said I pissed him off. I said, why did I piss you off? He goes, because I wanted a Ferrari and I didn't want to give myself permission for the Ferrari, so I decided to get on a Porsche, and I just saw you got both. And I said, why am I not allowed to? Why is it a this? He literally was like, why is it this or that? Dan got both. Why can't I have a Ferrari? I said, you're damn right. Go to the dealership this weekend. Take a picture with the Ferrari you want to get. I'm not saying to buy it, but send me a text. If you don't, never text me again. I care too much about you for you to mess around with this. Go take a photo with the Ferrari this weekend. Send me a text. And he did. And because he got in the car and he went for a test drive, he now sees it. It was like a 6-year goal that he's going to probably pull off in the next 10 months because he's in it, right? And I just think, like, what was the question again?
The question was, how did Ed fill the gap from the limited belief to his belief in you to then you actually getting that belief, and then obviously you took action.
But this is what it is when people, so you know what you want, it requires somebody you respect,
right?
The messenger. So the messenger matters more than the message. A lot of people think it's content. It's not. We've all experienced it. My parent says something. My mentor says something.
Right.
I listen. You tell your parents and they go, I've been telling you this for 10 years.
Yep.
Yeah, but you're my mom or you're my dad.
I wasn't hearing it.
So to me, the messenger matters. And because of who Ed was, and because I already had it on my heart, like, he didn't activate things that I didn't want intuitively to do. He just gave me permission by reinforcing what was there with his belief. And then he communicated that to me. And he is one of the best. If you listen to any of his pods, and I've told him this, it was one of the first questions I brought to our coaching call, is you do this thing with people. I watch it. I study patterns. I saw him do it in every podcast, every person I've ever been with him where he meets somebody in person. He tells them about them. He'll sit there and go, Colin, I got to tell you, man, you're so prepared. The fact that you came up tells me everything about you. It tells me that you're motivated, you're determined, you're willing to do what's hard. Most people wouldn't have drove up, man. That's really cool. He does that. He praises people for what he calls their giftedness. But to do that, you have to see it. It has to be authentic. Because, like, saying, hey, man, you're a good dude, that's flat. Saying, hey, man, the fact that you did this, or I saw you do this, or the way you showed up and interacted with that person.
It's specific.
It's got to be specific. So I don't know if he's going to write this book. I would love for him to write this book. But is watching him do that, he did that with me on every coaching call. And he would watch my content. And he literally yesterday grabbed one of my reels, sent it to me, and said, dude. Right?
Yeah.
Just saying, more of this, more of this. So I think that's what's cool about that, if you call it the power of believing in others, is every human has that skill. Every human has that gift. You have that gift. I have this gift. My 11-year-old son has this gift to slow down and see somebody do something that they may not even see themselves, that they're doing great, and tell them that. When I see a dad with 3 kids in the, in a lineup at the store, and one of them sprawled out on the ground freaking out, and that dad's holding space for his little boy to just feel the feelings, and he's not screaming at him or threatening to, wait till we get home, and he's just really just with a lot of love and tenderness.
He's in the pocket.
Dude,
Yeah.
I go over to that guy and I'll tell him, man, you're an incredible father. And your son doesn't know it today, but he will know that he got lucky. And then I just move on.
I hear a couple different things there. Number one, calling out the things that we already know to be true, but we haven't actually recognized them in ourselves, right? And then the actual messenger, right? So the person who is actually saying that thing to us. And so I find that very interesting because so many people listening to this podcast, right? I think it's a reminder that they have done really incredible things, and it's just a matter of recognizing that too, but then also taking the actions that Ed said, he gave you tactical things to go do, and then you went and did it and had production 7 days later, right? So we were just referencing, almost like a manifestation with the Ferrari, the Porsche, right? You talk about manifesting your recent events with Tony Robbins, which I think was super cool and was congratulations.
Thank you.
It was really amazing to witness. But you talk about how you had this idea that you were going to be speaking on stage at a Tony Robbins event. You went with Renee to a Tony Robbins event, and one thing led to another. You're at the front, you know, you're VIP, basically family, friends. I'm curious about the vision of how you got to that and why it was important to you. More specifically, I'm curious about who did you need to become to actually be the person that could present on stage at a Tony Robbins event?
And the beautiful thing you said earlier about being the 100th episode is you were like, I wouldn't have been ready for this conversation.
Right.
So that's the other thing, right? When people have a dream or goal, what they don't typically do is they don't prepare to receive. If you knew you're having a baby in 9 months, would you get ready? Of course you would. You would get the room ready. You'd buy some clothes. You'd talk to some people. You'd read some books.
You'd freak out a little bit.
You'd freak out, but you would prepare to receive.
That's right.
Right? Because
That's right.
the expectation is there. See, most people have goals, but they don't get ready to receive their goals. So I'm at it. Yeah, it's super
That's
cool
interesting.
concept. Yeah.
Wow.
It's when we want to talk about manifesting,
Yeah.
that's a big part of it.
Huh.
Okay. You act in the energy as if you received and you don't worry about timing. So what happened is I'd never been to a Tony event. I donated to an X Prize. I show up. Turns out that I'm invited, chairman invited seat, so I'm right on stage. And at the end, it was Date with Destiny. I'm doing the goals thing. And, one of the exercises was like, what's something, essentially the way I think about this question, I've heard it asked differently, is what's something you could write down that if it came true, it would prove that God is real? That was the way I took it, right? I think Joe Dispenza talks about it that way.
Yeah.
But so, you got to understand,
Wow.
Tony's probably had 20 million people attend events in person. I'm pretty sure more than, let's call it 10% said, I would love to speak on Tony's stage when they see other speakers come out, John Paul DiGiorno and friggin' you name it. Literally the who's who, Pitbull, like wow, wouldn't it be crazy if someday I do something, I'm successful enough that Tony's like, please come and teach this, Keith Cunningham, all these people. So I wrote it down. Now, the difference is because I've been manifesting for so long, pretty much since I was in my early 20s, I knew how to activate it. So the way you activate is you got to visualize it. So I have a vision board. I've been doing every year, okay? Every year, me and my wife sit down at the end of the year. We design each other's, we share them, we talk about it, and that's kind of, I set as a wallpaper to my laptop. And I've had me on stage at Tony Robbins' event, okay, visualize for 7 years. And I would tell people, I said, I don't know how and I don't know when. This is before my YouTube channel. This is before my book. This is before my socials. This was just a crazy idea. And I remember I was sharing it with my designer, Rich, and we were working on the vivid vision for one of my companies. And he decided in the document to put a visual image of me on stage with, essentially, it was the Date with Destiny stage with my face on the projector screens, me on the stage. Like he took Tony out and put me on it, but it was that event. And he put it in this document, this visual PDF. And I remember when he did, I was like, dude, he's like, hey man, you said it. Because that was the other thing is you activate it by speaking it. I believe we speak our futures into existence. Right. Words. Okay. I just posted a reel today about Conor McGregor doing this. And I would, 3 times a day, I would just look at this thing and try to get into the energy of being on that stage. And, then over time I started my YouTube, I started, creating more content, and then I decided to write a book, and the book comes out and it does well, and cool. But do you know how many best-selling books are and they still don't get invited? But Tony's the GOAT, okay? GOAT. He's goated. There's no denying. It would be hard for anybody to even try at any point to be bigger than Tony because he's just been doing it for so long, and people don't do events like he does. Like he legit has 16,000 people go to these events. And it would have been 7 months ago. I'm laying on my couch, as I do very often, actually. I work really hard. When I don't, I have no problem putting my feet up. My wife's next to me, and I get a text message with a screenshot from my assistant, Ann. And I think it's just like 3 explosion emojis with the screenshot. And I click it and I read it. And it says, Mr. Martell, Tony Robbins would like to invite you to speak at Business Mastery, da-da-da-da-da. And I don't even, I remember the moment, but I kind of like out of body. And I just started screaming like aggressively, like not an angry scream, but like an F yeah, but like really like
a 7-year deep
like
rooted.
I can't even explain it. Like, yes, you know what I mean? And Renee knew enough. Okay, she's been with me enough. When she started seeing me, she actually pulled out her phone and she recorded it. And I jumped off of the couch and I'm just jumping up and down the living room. I go, yeah. And she's like, what? And I'm
Let's
like,
go.
holy cow, you won't even believe it. She's like, what? And then I started crying. And I said, Tony Robbins just invited me to speak on stage. Like, Colin, it doesn't make sense. I grew up in a town of 100,000 people in Eastern Canada. I was a drug addict. I went to jail twice. I wasn't even supposed to be alive. How do you go from that to 27 years later being asked to speak on the stage by the GOAT? God had plans for me. God did. God had big plans for me. And I just know that every day I wake up, and I share this as often, and you'll know why I share this if you see this. I say my work ethic is a reflection of my gratitude. Because people don't get it. Why do you wake up at 4 a.m. if you don't have to? Why do you do this if you don't have to? You don't understand. It's because I don't have to that I honor the fact that I get to. And people that don't have wealth will never understand it, because if they got it, they would immediately do nothing, and that's why they'll never get it. Isn't that crazy? They don't correlate the fact that because God knows that if you got the money, you would immediately do nothing, he will never give it to you because he doesn't want you to do nothing. He wants you to create. I believe I got blessed because he knew that I would take advantage of that situation and use that to do more good. I believe that source supports those that support others. That's how it works. So you better believe I prepped. I did the work. And again, I wasn't ready 7 years ago. I wasn't even ready a year ago. I wasn't even ready 6 months prior. There were certain things that I needed to figure out that I figured out so that when I finally got on stage, I could show up as the person that Tony needed. Okay? Here's the deal. That was a one-time invite. And I document the whole things on my vlog because of Ed. Isn't that crazy?
Yep.
Not surprised. Not surprised at all. I remember I told Ed, bro, that's huge. That's huge, dude. And I'm like, I know, I'm nervous already. And I showed up and I did my thing. And about 6 weeks later, I get invited back. It's crazy,
Let's
dude.
go.
I know.
Let's go.
I'm like, it is special.
Wait, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, the callback.
I got called back.
Yeah.
Once I'm going in August.
When August? August what?
Don't know.
Yeah.
Dude, not only that, John Maxwell,
Amazing.
the GOAT, found out about me.
Sharing stages with him.
45 minutes, and he invited me to speak as vet. They're a week apart. One's in Orlando, one's in essentially West Palm. Like, what? I'm just a freaking kid, dude. I don't know. I'm still like...
You said something interesting. You said you needed to show up for Tony, right? So it was, I feel like a lot of individuals are so caught up, we are so caught up in our own heads about how are we doing it and how are we going to look for us, right? But you said something very powerful there, which was how do we do it for Tony? Because Tony is doing it for the people that are showing up.
Dude, because I have my own stages, when I invite somebody to share that stage, that's not an easy decision. You are extending your brand, your name to that person, not only in that moment, for the rest of life, because you invited that person. So those are not easy decisions. So, and I found out after the fact, how the heck did my name even get part of the conversation? And who did he back channel to verify, to make sure this Dan guy not only could deliver, but is somebody I would even want to potentially be associated with? Because like that's like, he's blessing me. And
Wow.
it was an honor, is an honor, continues to be an honor, and I will deliver the next one and any opportunity he asks. You know, as long as I don't have a major conflict, I always say yes. He actually asked me to do another. This is kind of funny. It don't matter. He asked me to do something else. Unfortunately, I had another conflict, that was crazy. Saying no to Tony, I felt so bad, but but same time, I want him to know that if I commit to something, like I told you, I always do it.
Yep. Look at where we are. You said no to Tony.
Dude,
that's crazy to even say out loud. You in your recent vlog, you shared a story that in regards to reputation and the folks that we have representing ourselves. You shared a pretty impactful story is what it sounded like.
Watched that one?
Yeah, I watched that. I watched that.
Man.
That was, I mean, ouch.
Hey, this is
but
yeah.
It's what do you do about it afterwards, right? It's how you responded. It was event plus response equals your outcome, which is what you did. Maybe if you want to touch on that, maybe how it impacted you.
I mean, it was. There was a period 2 years ago in my business, in SaaS Academy specifically. It was the hardest, not only week, it ended up being 6 months. And what happened that kicked this whole thing off was I invited somebody to speak at my event. And it was the smaller group, my very high-end group, 60 people in a room. We record everything. And he teaches men how to show up better for their wives, but he has a very vulgar way of saying that, if that makes sense, right? He's very
understood.
That whole alpha kind of, and but I knew that. I've seen him speak, and I remember before he went on stage, I said, "Hey man, could you not say those words? Could you tone it down?" And his response was like, "I'm pretty awesome, and I think people like who they meet. And I'm just gonna be me because that's pretty awesome. Is that okay?" And I was just like, "Dude, I'm not gonna fight with you. Whatever." Right. Again, it wasn't a public event. It was a private event. I warned everybody before he went on, hey, he's got a unique style. Bear with it. If it triggers you, be curious.
Yep.
We should always be curious things that offend us. Anyway, he does this thing. Yeah, there's a few people in the room that were like pretty not happy. No big deal. What happened is one of the women in the room that worked on the team was so offended, rightfully so. In hindsight, huge mistake on my part. And found the recording in our vault and sent it to all the other women on the team. Half my team are women. And that got to my COO, who was a woman. And I remember she calls me and she goes, Dan, did you see the talk that guy gave? And I said, I was in the room. I know, yeah. She goes, do you agree with everything he says? I said, well, I would never say it that way. But I mean, the points he was saying they were really good. Like he's got good content. And then she started reading me word for word what he had said. And she's like, so you're telling me you agree with these things? And I said,
that's a gut wrencher.
No, I don't. No. And she goes, good. Because if you did, we'd have an even bigger issue. But we do have an issue. There's several women on the team that are ready to leave.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was caught blindsided. And I said, what do you need me to do? She's like, I think you need to address the whole company. We have our all hands in a few days, do it there. And I apologize to everybody and, can't go back in time, but here's the new rule going forward. If I wouldn't say those words, then that person can't speak on my stage. Simple concept. In hindsight, I should have saw it. And I sincerely apologize. I thought that was enough. If you make a mistake, you apologize and tell me what you learned from it and what changed. I'll be like, cool, lesson learned. Unfortunately, that wasn't good enough. And it caused a cascading effect of HR issues and cultural issues. And there's just 6 months of my life was crazy. And I at one point got so frustrated. Again, I'm not perfect by any means. I did a Slack post. I was at the point where I couldn't figure out what was going on. Like, I apologize. Why is this person upset? And what are you talking about? And this was during COVID, and there was a bunch of stuff going on. There was a lot of emotions. And I just got to the point where I didn't even know who to trust, right? Like, I talked to somebody and they'd say we're good, and then I'd find out from somebody else that they're not good, and they're literally saying this, and this. And I'm like, I just talked to them, and so eventually I just wrote this Slack post that said, here's our mission. Because like my whole philosophy in business is I'm here to solve the customer's problem. I'm not here to solve the world's problem. That's my philosophy. That's the kind of culture.
Okay.
Either you're on board with that or you're not.
Yeah.
I can't solve every world's problem. I can solve the problem that our customers paid us. We all get to come to work because we have a customer. Let's focus on that. And I said, if for whatever reason that doesn't align with you, I will give you $15,000 to quit, and I won't ask questions. I posted this. I wrote this whole thing and I posted it. Oh, yeah.
How did that go?
First off, all my directors and my vice presidents called me right away. What are you doing? Because I didn't even review with them. That was dumb. And the worst part was people that weren't even on the issues list were just so confused what was going on that they opted in to leave just because they were like, this is weird.
Yeah.
Not mad at me, but
they didn't have context around what was
they were they were trying to do their work. A players are just executing.
Yeah.
And they were dealing with this. And it just got to a point where they're like, you know what? You guys got to figure this out, but I'm going to go.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh no. So yeah, the people I didn't want to go, they were like talking like I'm leaving, and I'm like, oh no. So it was crazy. But that's like the punchline to the whole thing is it took me 2 years, but I knew in that moment that as I worked through it, and this is just with history and experience, I've been doing this for 20 some years. All I know is that the worst thing that ever happens to you is literally the most powerful thing you can have in the future. When we talk about getting ready to receive, sometimes the adversity is actually forging you into the person you need to become to receive your goal. And I knew in that moment, I didn't know how long it was going to take me, but I would, and I did, rebuild the whole culture. We lost 32% of our team.
Wow.
In 6 months.
Wow.
2 years later, not only do we have the highest ENPS score, the Employee Net Promoter Score, highest culture feedback, I just announced last week that Johnny, at the time, my CRO, today is taking over as CEO. I'm moving to president, and the business is thriving. It took 2 years. It was a lot of work, but I knew that with enough time, I'd figure it out, and it would be the most powerful story that I could use to help encourage other people dealing with leadership issues, because it's just true. It's business. It's
gonna happen.
It will happen again, man.
Yeah.
Like somebody on my team's gonna do something, and in that moment, I'm gonna laugh and I'm gonna tell them a little story, and they're gonna go, "Oh my gosh, you went through it too?" I go, "Yeah." So that thing you did there, how about we don't do that? How about we lead with curiosity? How about we figure out what people's 5-year goals are? How about we understand the vision for, like, you know what I mean? Like what I did is while I was going through it, it's literally a notes file on my phone called the toughest week of my business life ever. And I would just write down everything that was happening. There was like 13 things, just crazy stuff. People lying to me. My HR director, okay? She was part of the issue. Guess what her name is? Karen. Can't even make this stuff up, dude. It's like literally just writes itself. So, but I knew at the other end of this, with enough time, I'll figure it out, and it'll be the most epic story.
Reminds me of a couple of different things I've heard over time. One is from edmylett, podcast a couple years ago. It's not what happens to us, it's what happens for us.
Yeah.
Right, depending on how we choose to look at it. And we have to have been where we were to get to where we are.
Yeah.
Right? I think those are two things that stand out to me in your story here. And so, Dan, we have a couple minutes here. I want to respect your time. And typically I'll have 4 questions that I'll run through at the end. I'm going to skip to the last one. And it's, what would 65-year-old Dan say to your current day self right now?
Go bigger.
Go bigger.
Chicken shit. That's exactly what he's going to say.
Tell me what that means. What does he mean by that?
Just stop acting like you got constraints. Stop. Like until you actually have a constraint, stop acting like you got one.
Why are you acting like you have one, do you think?
Scared to lose it. Scared to embarrass myself publicly.
Do you really think you would lose it?
I think I could do enough damage. I think I could. The fun part for me is even if I lost all the possession stuff, my wife and I, we're good. Like we talk about it all the time. Worst case, I go live with my brother for 3 months and then we're back to where we were. Like,
heard you say a story the other day. Renee walked in, something was up. You went, sat upstairs in the pocket, in the feet in the sink. I go,
oh yeah, when she was having a moment.
You just got to be in the moment though.
Yeah, just let her feel.
What are you resisting?
Yeah. I mean, it's that's what the 65-year-old would say. Just stop holding back. You've been gifted these skills and community and people.
Too many more people to serve.
Yeah, just ask for more help, get some more support, learn faster. Yeah, and that's literally I use that frame every day to just ask myself, where am I playing small?
Build your people bigger.
Yeah, we build the people and the people build the business.
Yeah, beautiful. Dan,
Colin,
it's been a pleasure.
Super fun. Great questions.
I appreciate it. Yeah, you bet.
Dude.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Seeds of Success podcast. If you got to the end of this episode, can you please do me a huge favor and leave a 5-star rating and review? This helps me be able to reach out to bigger guests and also be able to get access to special events and activities that otherwise would not be possible without your support. So if you could please take just 3 seconds and leave a 5-star rating and review, it would mean the world to me, and I will see you on the next episode.